Hi, this is Crystal from Crystallized Designs, and today I'm going to show you how to create a candle sleeve. A few things that you need is the candle sleeve form, which we created in a previous tutorial, so if you need to see how to make one of these, I can link that. You need a swatch of some sort that will become your candle sleeve. You need fabric stiffener. This is the one I will be using today, though I have multiple kinds and have used different kinds. Um, Most of them are fairly similar. This one I got at Hobby Lobby. You can also do watered down glue, but for today we're going to use this one. You need some, I am using T-pins. You can use standard pins. You do want to make sure they are rust proof, just because you don't want rust getting on any of your projects. You need a small container, large enough to fit whatever piece that you're stiffening in. And I'm going to be using this one. I've used this from previous candle sleeves, so I have a little bit of stiffener already in here. And it is airtight, so I just keep this as my stiffening container. So those are some of the things that you're going to need. We're going to set this stuff aside a little bit. All right, with our container, we are going to, I recommend doing this in an area where you can clean up easily. Obviously right now I can't be by a sink, so I have a rag handy to wipe my hands because this is very, very messy. So in your container, all you're going to do is, if I can get it open, add stiffener. And you're going to want to add a decent amount. Don't be conservative. You'll probably be adding more, or if you're like me, you'll be adding more because I think that's enough, and that's not going to be enough. This is the swatch that we're going to be using, and we want to make sure that every section of this is completely saturated with stiffener. So this is the messy part. I'm going to dunk this in here and just kind of play with it. I want to massage it in and get it all in the fibers. And like I said, I feel like I have plenty every time I do this, and then I realize I don't have nearly as much as I should have. So as you can see, what I added has basically been soaked up, and it is not enough. So I'm going to rinse off my hands, and I'm going to add a bunch more. More is better in this case. We can easily squeeze it out. We don't want to twist. We don't want to really deform this, but we do want to make sure it is pretty good with being in every part. My stiffener's making little noises. I don't know if you can hear that. Okay, so once you're sure that everything is really saturated, you can go ahead and squeeze out any excess, carefully doing so. Like I said, you just want to make sure it is really, really saturated. You will find that if you don't saturate it, you will have flimsy sections in your piece. I'm just going to rinse off my hands an additional time here. Okay, so now using our form, I'm going to set my stiffener aside. Using our form, what I like to do is line up my edges with this. Now, when we created this, we did the bottom edge. That's going to be the bottom. So we want that to be as aligned as possible so we can have our form sit evenly. Then these 3 lines are for each candle size. Now, this specific swatch is the medium candle. So I'm going to want to go up to this line right here. So starting at the back with my T-pins, I'm going to put a bunch of them down here. Again, this part gets messy too. Either side, any way you want to start. Put this off to the side. It really helps with clear plastic because you can really see where you're punching your needles, or your pins, excuse me, not your needles, because this is taped. Having a little bit harder time getting through that. Okay, so I got my bottom piece. I'm going to get this up to the top. And it depends on which yarn you use, or which thread you use, pardon me. It may come straight up to here. You may go a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do with this line that I'm meeting up, I'm going to do all my puff stitches up to that line. And again, seeing where I'm sticking my pin is really, really helpful so I don't stick my finger. I'm going to add a few carefully right here. I'm being very cautious not to hit my hand there. All right, so now we're just going to continuously go around and add them while keeping kind of tension on it. Just going to kind of space these out a little bit. And if it doesn't go all the way around, that's fine. This will close up a little. All right. Oh, I want to get more towards my bottom line. You do want this bottom edge to be as perfect as possible. Start in the middle here, because then it will sit evenly. My puff stitches. Again, this is messy. I'm getting this all over. Wow. I have to space this out a little bit. You're just going to play with it just to get it where exactly you want it. All right. So now that I got my two edges, I'm just going to continuously add pins around carefully so you're not poking your fingers or scratching your wrists. I've done that too. All right, now I'm just going to work along the bottom. So now I'm going to kind of work my way up. This is also where, if you've watched the tutorial on marking this form, you want to mark the inside. That way if you have a light color, like here's my cream, I'm not getting marker on my thread. Now you're just going to add slightly, not slightly. Obviously I can't talk and stick pins in a form and think at the same time. You're going to just add sporadically and then add pins as you go. Now I'm getting back to my starting area and I can kind of feel the pins poking me, so please be careful when you do this. All right, so again, you're just going to play with it. If something doesn't stay where you want it to, pin it. That's all you have to do. If you have different plastic, that's going to determine how easy or hard this is to do. So once you get one edge, then it's kind of a lot easier just to go around. And pull them where you need to go. But the beginning takes a little bit of playing. The forms, this one is obviously used for the first time in this tutorial, but I have used them over and over and over again. It's only when you get a lot of holes in one area that you're going to want to create a new form. There are also, you don't have to use this form, you can definitely use something else, as long as you can get pins through it. And it's slightly larger than your candle that you're going for, it will work. I really like this because I can see where I'm poking with it being clear. You can use placemats. You can use stencil forms, like they sell those at most hobby stores, stencil forms. So you can also use that instead of this particular plastic. All right. Now I'm just going to check it to make sure and adjust if needed. So this edge, it's not as pointy as I really want it or where I want it. So I'm just going to adjust that. And I did spread this out a little bit higher than I have my other candles. So this is a little bit taller than I originally wanted it for the specific candle that I wanted it for. Whoops. That's okay. All right. So now I'm just checking my bottom here. And again, I want the bottom to be as accurate as possible, because if by chance this is uneven, it will sit uneven. If you're putting it on a stand, like I have a candle base, then you really won't see it. But if you're being picky, you definitely want the bottom more accurate than you would the back end. Alright, so I think I'm gonna call it quits for the tutorial. I might play with it a little bit more, but you get the idea of it. So again, this back, we could definitely add more, and this is what I do when I make these. I just continuously add as I see fit, and I just don't stop until I'm normally out of needles. Be very careful inserting your hand if you need to when you have this many pins in there. This back end, see, I just keep going and going. I don't know when to quit. Okay, one more, and then I'm going to call it done. Okay, I'm going to add this one right here. I'm not too worried about this back end being perfect, because what we're going to do when this is all done and dried and taken off is we're going to take leftover, I don't have it, but leftover or additional thread, and we're just going to sew it together so it maintains that form and it's not loose. But that is how you create it. So that's from the top. You see all the pins in there. Sides. It is messy, then you just have to clean up. So in my haste, this is a little curved. Oh, this is a little curved. So make sure you're really getting it the way you want it to, and right now would be the time you would change this around. I see this is where my problem is at. I see I did not get that. I said that was the last pin, but I lied. So this is where my problem was not really paying attention to where my edge was, and I pulled this puff stitch to the edge, and it shouldn't have been all the way to the edge. If you find an error like that while it's still wet, this is when you want to correct it. And then once it is dry, you want to let it dry per the instructions on whatever stiffener you're using, or overnight. As long as it is completely dry, that is when you want to start removing the pins. If by chance you find that, let's say this part right here seems floppy or anything like that, this is where I would take more fabric stiffener and I would add more to it already on the form and leave it for an additional day or something along those lines, just for that part to stiffen, because you want this entire piece to be stiff and firm, so it can fit nicely around your candle and not cave in or anything like that. And again, just something as a precaution, I use battery operated candles. I have small children and they are a fire hazard. This is also a fire hazard, so I recommend only using these sleeves with battery operated candles. Alright, and that is the end of the tutorial. I would love to see any projects you made using this tutorial. Feel free to show them on any of my social media or email them to me, and I would love to see what you do. Thanks.